I cheated on my husband, enjoyed life after the divorce, but now, seeing him remarried with a daughter, I regret everything. I'm not seeking excuses or justification. I know what I did was wrong, and that I lost the most valuable thing I had because of a foolish decision. My story begins when I met Santiago in school. As kids, I knew he was different, not the typical troublemaker or attention seeker, but always there to help anyone in need. With me, he was especially kind, always attentive, ensuring I was okay. Over time, we became inseparable. Though I didn't admit it then, deep down, I always knew if I ever had a serious relationship, I wanted it to be with him. When he asked me to be his girlfriend, I couldn't believe it. I dreamed of that moment, but never thought it would happen. I said yes without hesitation, and high school felt like a fairy tale. Everyone saw us as the perfect couple, envying our relationship. I felt lucky. Time passed, and we stayed together through college. While friends faced breakups and drama, we remained solid. Santiago was reliable, stable, someone I could lean on without fear. To me, he was the ideal man. When he proposed after graduation, I didn't hesitate to accept. It felt right. We married shortly after turning 22, and for a while, everything was perfect. We had our own apartment, stable jobs, and the life any couple would want. I thought I'd made it, that I had everything needed to be happy. But a year later, something changed. After a conversation with my friends, I realized my life wasn't the same. They talked about parties, spontaneous trips, and new experiences, while I only spoke of my home, what I'd cooked, how I'd organized the apartment, or my job. Santiago never forced me into anything. He never imposed a role or made me feel trapped. But I'd unknowingly become a woman, living solely for her husband. My friends, especially Paula, who never married, began pointing out the differences. She called us boring, mocking how our conversations revolved around responsibilities while she enjoyed the freedom to date anyone. My other friends, Andrea and Sophia, had partners but weren't married, so they still went out, had fun, and made plans without many constraints. I was the only one who'd crossed that line. At first, I ignored their comments, but they started lingering. Had I made a mistake marrying so young? Had I given up my independence too soon? The worst part was I had no clear answer. By our third year of marriage, my frustration grew. Santiago never changed, always the same attentive, loving man, but I felt suffocated. Every day seemed identical: work, cook, talk briefly, sleep. The routine choked me. Though I enjoyed our outings, they felt different from what I thought I should be living at my age. The final trigger was when Santiago mentioned wanting children. To him, it was the natural next step. We were stable, had a good home, got along well. But those words broke something in me. I imagined myself years later, fully devoted to a child, and felt prematurely aged. That night, I discussed it with my friends, and their responses were exactly what I wanted to hear. Paula laughed, saying a child would end my life, that I'd only be seen as a mother, not a woman. Andrea suggested I could still have fun before that step. Sophia, more moderate, advised me not to rush, to enjoy my youth. Though I didn't admit it then, I decided to reclaim the life I felt I'd lost. I started going out more with my friends, using the excuse that I needed a distraction, that occasional outings were harmless. Santiago never objected because he trusted me completely. When I said I was going out with the girls, he'd smile and tell me to have fun. He never checked my phone, never asked probing questions, never gave me reason to doubt his love. But I wasn't just seeking distraction. I wanted to feel young again, to feel I had options, that my life wasn't fully set. The first time it happened wasn't planned. We were at a bar celebrating Paula's birthday. I'd been going out with them more often, getting used to long nights, drinks, and harmless flirting. That night was different. A man at the bar kept staring at me, not particularly attractive or remarkable, but he had something I hadn't felt in ages: interest in me as a woman, Not a wife or future mother, but as someone desirable. When he approached and talked, I went along. I didn't mention I was married or hint at my real life. At some point, without thinking, I slipped off my wedding ring and put it in my purse. I wanted to feel free, even just for that night. The rest was almost automatic. We drank, laughed, and before I knew it, I was at his apartment. I'd convinced myself I was reclaiming something owed to me, that it wasn't serious, just a moment of enjoyment. But waking up the next morning, hungover, seeing my ring in my purse, I knew I'd crossed a line I couldn't undo. I'd turned off my phone the night before to avoid interruptions, wanting to disconnect. That morning, seeing it off, I realized I didn't want to face the messages or missed calls. I stayed in that strange bed, the hangover hitting hard, but the shame hit harder. I had no idea how I'd let it get that far, but it was too late. Done was done. When I mustered the courage to leave, I didn't look at the man sleeping beside me. I dressed quietly, grabbed my things, and slipped out without a sound. Walking down the street, head pounding, legs shaky, I kept telling myself to act normal. I'd go home, shower, change, and head to work like any other day, pretending nothing happened. If lucky, Santiago would already be at work, and I'd make an excuse later. But my plan crumbled the moment I got home. Santiago was there, waiting in the living room. My heart sank. His eyes scanned me, his expression hard, filled with something I'd never seen in him, suspicion. Gone was the affectionate man who greeted me with a kiss or smile. I tried acting casual, saying, "I need to get ready for work," heading toward the bedroom. "Where were you?" I froze. "You know, out with the girls. You turned off your phone all night." I didn't know how to respond. My mind, clouded by hangover and guilt, couldn't react fast enough. Santiago's gaze didn't waver, his jaw tense, posture rigid. "Where were you?" he repeated louder. "Santiago, I'm late. I need to get ready." "Who were you with?" he said, louder still. My mouth opened, but no words came out. The silence said everything. His face changed, hands clenching into fists. He stepped toward me, voice low, trembling with restrained fury. "Did you cheat on me?" Panic paralyzed me. I wanted to say something, anything, but my throat was dry, my mind unable to form a coherent lie. "Answer me!" I couldn't, and that was my final mistake. Santiago let out a shaky sigh, running a hand through his hair as if trying to calm himself, but his eyes burned with rage and pain. "You're a traitor." "It's not what you think," I stammered, but it was too late. He shook his head, laughing bitterly, the laugh of someone who just lost everything they believed true. "Don't bother making excuses. I know because you can't even look me in the eyes and say you didn't." Tears fell uncontrollably. I reached for his hand, but he pulled away as if I'd burned him. "Santiago, please forgive me. I don't know what I was thinking." His voice was cold, cutting. "There's no going back. This is a line I can never forgive." Without another word, he walked out. The rest of the day was hell. I went to work but couldn't focus. Barely ate, barely spoke, consumed by Santiago's expression, the pain I'd caused, what I'd done. The following nights were worse. Santiago didn't sleep in our room, staying in the living room, ignoring me. When I tried to approach, he shut me out. When I tried to touch him, he pushed me away coldly. After days of unbearable silence and emptiness, a week later, divorce papers arrived at my workplace. I locked myself in the bathroom and cried until I couldn't anymore. I begged him, pleaded for therapy, another chance. "If you loved me, you wouldn't have done this," was the last thing he said. The divorce was swift. We split everything evenly. The house was sold. Each kept their car and it was over. Signing the final document, I realized I'd lost not just my husband but my best friend. It was devastating. My friends tried to help, taking me to parties and bars, introducing me to new people, saying I should see the divorce as a second chance to enjoy life. Slowly, I believed them. Yes, I'd erred by cheating, but maybe I'd also erred by marrying so young. Perhaps I wasn't meant for marriage. Maybe freedom was what I needed. I embraced my new life fully, avoiding serious relationships, wanting no commitments or feeling trapped again. I had casual relationships, tried new experiences, open relationships, partner swaps, things unthinkable in my marriage. In those years, 2 friends married. Paula mocked them, saying they'd surrender to the system, doomed to live for their husbands. We laughed, joking about how dull it must be to have the same partner daily. But things changed when Sophia got pregnant after her wedding. She started pulling away. We tried convincing her she didn't need to abandon her social life, but she wasn't interested. When we went out, she left early, didn't flirt, and avoided our man talk. We called her enslaved, saying her husband and baby had trapped her. We laughed, but she seemed unbothered, content. Andrea's story was different. Married months after Sophia, she cheated within their first year. At the time, I didn't see it as bad. After all, I'd done the same. What shocked us was her husband finding out and divorcing her immediately. We mocked it, saying men couldn't handle anything anymore, lacked patience. We laughed, and Andrea moved on without regret. But my own life started feeling repetitive. Work, home, eating alone, watching shows before bed, and a growing emptiness, a sense something was wrong, missing. At first, I ignored it, telling myself I was fine, that enjoying life my way mattered. But some nights, the silence was too loud, the bed too big, and crushing loneliness left me crying until I fell asleep. Weekend outings with friends kept me going, but even those lost their shine. Years passed since I last heard of Santiago. After the divorce, I focused so hard on moving forward that I cut all ties with the past. I didn't know if he'd remarried, had kids, or was happy. In lonely nights, I wondered if he regretted leaving everything behind. I had no answers and convinced myself I didn't need them. But a few weeks ago, I got an invitation to our 15-year high school reunion. I hesitated, having lost touch with most old friends. My life revolved around work, outings, and fleeting hookups I barely recalled days later. But curiosity or nostalgia made me go. At the venue, the atmosphere was different from what I remembered. Conversations weren't about parties, wild trips, or drunken tales. Now it was marriages, kids, built lives. Surrounded by people discussing schools, family homes, and vacations, I felt they'd all rushed too much. Hadn't anyone enjoyed their youth? Why were they content with such monotonous lives? I felt out of place, in a world I didn't belong to. Then I saw him. Santiago walked in with a woman beside him and a young girl holding his hand. My breath caught. It had been so long. I briefly felt I was seeing a stranger, but it was him, my lifelong best friend, the man who loved me most, whom I betrayed and who never spoke to me again. He looked incredible, more mature, confident, with the calm, happy expression I once knew. His wife whispered something, and he smiled, leaning to kiss her cheek. He greeted the group with his usual ease, laughing as he introduced his wife. I stayed back, watching from a distance, feeling strange. I didn't know if I should approach, but decided if he wanted to greet me, he would. Then I noticed the girl running around, greeting everyone with infectious childlike energy. People commented on how well-mannered and sweet she was. She came up to me. "Hi," she said with a big smile. Caught off guard, I replied, "Hi," with the best smile I could muster. "Did you go to school with my dad?" I nodded. "Yes, we were very good friends." Her face lit up. "That's so cool," she said excitedly. "Guess what? In 2 weeks, my parents are taking me to Disney because I got really good grades." I didn't know what to say. She was proud, happy, with 2 loving parents giving her the best life possible. There I was, listening to her talk about a world that could have been mine, but I'd thrown away by my own choice. Before I could respond, someone called her, and she ran off. Soon, Santiago and his wife joined my group. My heart raced, unsure what to expect. Would he ignore me? Act like he didn't know me? He looked at me briefly with the same polite, distant expression he gave everyone. "Hope everything's going well," he said neutrally. "Yes," I murmured politely. With a casual gesture, he moved on before I could say more, saying they had plans to see a movie and had only stopped by to say hi. I watched him leave, hand in hand with his wife, their daughter skipping ahead. I stood frozen. Amid those seemingly perfect lives, something in me broke. A sense of injustice overwhelmed me. That life should have been mine. I should have been the woman at his side, the mother of his daughter. But I knew the truth. I had that chance and squandered it. Since that day, the feeling has only grown. I've noticed things I avoided before, like how at bars, men don't approach us like they used to. I see my friends trying to flirt with younger guys who barely notice, complaining that men have changed, don't know how to pursue women. I listened silently. 2 days ago, my eyes fully opened. I visited one of my casual hookups. Not someone I particularly like, just someone I see occasionally to pass time. While talking, words slipped out unthinkingly. "Don't you think we could try something more serious?" The silence was awkward. He looked surprised, as if he'd never considered it. "I don't know," he said after a pause. "What I like about this is no expectations. We meet when we want, no strings." I knew I'd erred. We talked more, but his discomfort was clear. Yesterday, he texted that we should stop seeing each other, that things were getting too complicated. Now I'm here, sitting at my computer after a long workday, alone, writing this expecting nothing. I don't want advice, support, or criticism, just to get this off my chest. I know when I finish, I'll close my laptop, shower, lie in bed, and cry, as I have every night lately. I hope this helps, because honestly, I don't know how much more of this emptiness I can bear.